We're live. We're live. Are you ready for the madness? Ooh, are you ready? Hi. Kachunga, my friends. Kachunga. It is I, Rev the Rev. And I ain't no vicar. I'm not, honestly. I'm not a vicar. Hallelujah. No, I'm no vicar. And I'll start the show. I start the show as always. My words of wisdom. If you've enjoyed the show, or if you think you enjoy the show, please hit that thumbs up button. And if you haven't done so already and you'd like to see some more of my stuff, just please subscribe to my channel. Just click on that big red subscribe button. And if you want to know what's coming out, all you got to do is ring my bell. Ring my bell, ding dong, ding a ling a ling. Yes, yes, yes. Welcome. And we're going to start the show. We're going to start the show with some funnies. One day, Einstein, that's Albert Einstein, he was a secret agent in those days. Hi, my name's Einstein. Albert Einstein had to speak at an important science conference. On the way there, he tells his driver that looks a bit like him. He needs to look a little bit like him for this joke to work. I'm sick of these conferences. I always say the same things over and over again. The driver agrees. You're right. As your driver, I attended all of them. And even though I don't know anything about science, I could give the conference in your place. That's a great idea, said Einstein. Albert Einstein. Let's switch places then. So they switched clothes, and as soon as they arrived, the driver dressed as Einstein goes on stage and starts giving the usual speech. While the real Einstein, dressed as the car driver, attends it. Nip, 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 nip. But in the crowd, there is one scientist who wants to impress everyone and thinks of a very difficult question to ask Einstein. Albert Einstein. Hoping he won't be able to respond, so this guy stands up and interrupts the conference by posing his very difficult question. The whole room goes silent, holding their breath, waiting for the response. The driver looks at him dead in the eye and says, Sir, your question is so easy to answer that I'm going to let my driver reply for it for me. and the driver's up to Einstein and I thought it's funny. This is more adult-wise, but a poor man asks a rich man, "What did you get in your wife this Christmas?" The rich man replies, "Diamond earrings and a Mercedes." The poor man asks, "Why are you getting a new present?" And the rich man says, "Well, if she doesn't like the earring, then she can drive to the store and exchange them." The poor man nods. Then the rich man asks him, "What are you getting with your wife this year?" The poor man thinks about it for a second and replies, "A pair of slippers and a dildo." The rich man asks, "Why those two things?" The poor man usually responds, "This way, if she don't like slippers, she can go fuck herself." Kids, it's an adult show. That's allowed. I'm getting glared at by the missus. Clearly, that wasn't as funny as I thought it was. So, last but not least, the worst joke of the last. The worst joke of the lot now last. There was a man in Bulgaria who drove trains for a living. He loved his job. Driving the train has been his dream ever since he was a child. He loved to make the train go as fast as possible. Unfortunately, one day he was a little too reckless and caused a crash. He made it out, but a single person died. Well, needless to say, he went to court over this incident and he was found guilty and was sentenced to death by electrocution. On the day the execution came, he requested a single banana as his last meal. After eating the banana, he was strapped into an electric chair, the switch was flown, sparks flew, and smoke filled the air, but nothing happened. The man was perfectly fine. Well, at this time, there was an old Bulgarian law that said a failed execution was a sign of divine intervention. If you survived execution, you survived. You can go free. Intervention. That's the word. Intervention. So the man was allowed to go free. Somehow he managed to get his old job back, driving the train. Must be the usual, same as our British government people, by the sounds of it. Having not learned his lesson, that's all. He went right back to driving the train with a reckless abandon. Once again, he caused the train to crash, this time killing 2 people. The trial went much the same as the first, resulting in a sentence of execution. For his final meal, the man requested 2 bananas. After eating the bananas, he was strapped into the chair, the switch was thrown, sparks flew, smoke filled the room, and the man was once again unharmed. So, of course, this meant he was free to go again. And once again, he somehow managed to get his job back. People never learn. People never learn. What should have been the surprise of no one, he crashed yet another train and killed 3 people. So he once again found himself being sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, he requested his final meal of 3 bananas. You know what? No, said the executioner. I've had it with you and your bloody bananas. I'm walking out of here unarmed. I'm not giving you a bloody thing to eat. We're strapping you in and doing this now. Well, it was against protocol, but the man was strapped into the chair without a last meal. The switch was pulled, sparks flew, smoke filled the room, and the man was still unharmed. The executioner was speechless. The man looked at this executioner and said, "Oh, the bananas had nothing to do with it. I'm just a bad conductor." I made my missus laugh in the background with that one. There you go. That is bad jokes. The bad jokes. The bad jokes of the day. I hope you enjoyed my bad jokes of the day. The bad jokes of the day. So before we get in with the next subject, I would love to know what. No, let me rephrase those words. I'd love to know if you've all had a lovely Christmas, you all had a lovely New Year, and you're all getting settled in to go back to work, and this madness of lockdown of 2021. Oh, please have faith. Things will get better. It's better. So yes. Now, I researched this information on the 19th anniversary of this actual September 11th terror attacks, which wasn't bad. It was a very fateful day in American history. Now, I'll actually I put down the episodes about 9/11. What we got is 11 most compelling theories about 9/11. Now, it was a very, very dark day, and it was. I'm not going to eat about the Bush or anything like that. The biggest conspiracy of the lot, was it actually done deliberately and not as a terrorist attack? Was it all plants and stuff? I'm going to come out and just, what I think is irrelevant. He knows I do these shows. I always try to be the middleman in all this. I don't like to steer it in one way or another. I just read out the facts and I'll let you guys come to your own conclusions. Right, we'll go on. We'll go straight into it. So, have to bear with me, because my notes to one side and I read my notes as I go along. That's how I like to do things. How I like to do things. Now, many Many conspiracies have been recycled over the years, but new ones have arisen. Yes. And upon that note, I just realised I got to turn my phone on silent. My missus just picked her phone up. She's put hers on silent as well, just in case. So, dubious assertion has been shut down with tangible proof. But the following conspiracy theories about what really happened on September 11th are still apparently up for debate. Many 9/11 conspiracy theories surfaced shortly after the September 11th attack, some bringing compelling argument and some not holding up at all. Theorists believe that the World Trade Center buildings were demolished by bombs, phone calls from the planes were made up, or that famous President George W. Bush secretly profited from the attacks. This is the first out of 11. This is the first. Insider traders knew about the attacks before they happened. Right before the September 11th attacks, some fishy business had happened within the stock market and insurance firms. An extraordinary amount of put options were placed on United Airlines and American Airlines stocks, the same airlines that were hijacked during the attacks. Many speculate that traders were tipped off about the attacks and profited from the tragedy. The Securities and Exchange Commission launched an insider trading investigation in which Osama bin Laden was a suspect after receiving information from at least one Wall Street firm. Another fact was air defense was told to stand down. In the event that an airplane is hijacked, the North American Aerospace Defense Command is prepared to send out fighter jets which can talk to the people or shoot down the planes. On 9/11/01, NORAD generals said they learned of the hijackings in times for scrambled fighter jets. Some skeptics believe NORAD commanded defense systems to stand down because their lack of presence during the attacks. Now, this is a fact. I say it's not a fact because you got to prove it, but it's one of the conspiracies there. Planes didn't make the Twin Towers collapse. Didn't help. It didn't help. Bombs did. The World Trade Center collapse appeared similar to a controlled demolition. Many speculate that the towers were in fact blown down with explosives placed in selective locations. Some witnesses recounted hearing explosions inside the building as they attempted to escape. Many architects and scientists even maintain that a plane's fuel cannot produce enough heat to melt steel frames of two buildings that collapsed. The Pentagon attack scientifically doesn't hold up. The Pentagon crash may be the most puzzling event of the day. Theorists maintain that the impact holes in the Pentagon were much smaller than a commercial American Airlines plane. They also question why the plane was not shot down prior to impact, as well as why the plane impacted a section of the Pentagon that was vacant due to renovations. The fourth hijacked plane, Flight 93, crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It was believed that the passengers fought back and crashed the plane into a field. Skeptics believe that Flight 93 landed safely, while a substitute plane was shot out of the sky. Other theorists believe that the passengers were murdered or relocated and will never be found. Hijackers are alive! How did their passport survive explosion? After the September 11th attacks, the loose change document stated that all of the hijackers were actually alive in other countries. Rather presumptuous, since it's possible for two different people to have identical names. But they did raise a good point. How did the passports of the terrorists survive the explosion? In the aftermath of the attacks, passports and identifications were found as evidence. Many skeptics question how identification made out of paper survived the same explosions that destroyed buildings. It's actually quite a good point. It's a very, very good and strong point. Cell phones calls made from the planes were fake. The flight calls were made from cell phones in both hijacked airplanes. Scientists and skeptics maintain that cell phones could not receive reception from the altitudes at which planes typically fly. Yeah. Others questioned a phone call from a son to his father, in which he referred to himself by his first and last name. Jewish people knew the attack was going to happen. They took the day off work on September 11th. Sorry. My mind is so lost. I lost my way. Ooh. Theorists noticed that 4,000 Jewish employees took off from work from September 11, 2001. Some of the first people to record the attacks on cameras were also Jewish. Many became suspicious and put the religious group on the radar as suspects in the wake of the attack. And you might be able to hear a wash machine in the background. That sound effect for you. Black boxes found by search crew kept secret. Ooh. During the weeks following the attack, the plane's black boxes were one of the most important items under investigation. They were the only evidence into what happened inside the cockpits of the plane. 3 or 4 black boxes were found, and only one was in good enough condition to hear. The tape was not initially released, but was shared with families of the victims in 2002. Skeptics believe the tapes were not disclosed in order to support a secret scheme. We're getting there. We're getting there. The Bin Laden tapes are fake. Initially, Osama bin Laden denied any involvement with the attacks. It wasn't me, I was on holiday. Soon afterwards, numerous tapes came out claiming he'd changed his mind and took responsibility. That must be the female side of him. Oh, I changed my mind, I'm going to do it now. Many skeptics believe that bin Laden was targeted because of his stake in the stock market, as well as because of former President George W. Bush's personal business ventures into the Middle East. It gave us a reason to go in and invade the country, is what we're trying to say. Aluminium planes can't penetrate steel structure of World Trade Center. What? Commercial airplanes frames are constricted. Are constructed as in the Transformers Constructicons. More than misty eye. Are constructed with a very light aluminium material in order to make it easier to fly a kite. Not in this day and age, you can't. Theorists maintain there is no possible way an airplane can do as much damage to the Twin Towers as it did. They believe that missiles or explosives were used to ensure the buildings collapsed. So that's what we're saying earlier on, wasn't it? About the Twin Towers brought down by explosives, not planes. We said that earlier on with the bombs, but let's go into this and read what it says. Within just a few hours of the attacks on the Twin Towers, perhaps the most well-known of the theories had already surfaced in an internet chat room. Doesn't take long these days, does it? The author of that post likened the collapse of the North and South Towers to an act of controlled demolition, not the wrestlers from the 80s. Due to the way the builders fell so quickly and perfectly into their own footprint. After the dust has settled, theorists raised further evidence in the form of witness testimonies, citing reports of explosions being heard before the towers collapsed and debris visibly shooting out from the lower levels of the buildings. When the official report stated the towers fell due to several severe structural damages caused by the planes and resulting fires, conspiracy theorists, or truthers as they are otherwise known, argue that the fires did not burn for long, 56 minutes in the case of the South Tower, to cause the catastrophic collapse. 14 years after the attack, we still will never know. It's not 14 years, it's 19 years after the attack. We'll still never know the attack, and I don't think we always will. To me, that's what's not important. What is important is human lives were lost on that day. It was tragic, very, very tragic. Could we have stopped it from happening? I don't know. I can't say yes. I can't say no. Why am I speaking a rhyme? I'm speaking in time. No, it was a very tragic day. A lot of people lost their lives. Was it caused by greed? Was it caused by to give the Americans a reason to go into the other countries? We'll never know. We'll never know. Such the same way that did Hitler attack his own country by faking Germans as Polish people? You'll never know. That's the problem. A lot of the stuff we should know, would like to know, we don't. So I'll end this with the thoughts that please don't let me put my thoughts across and change your mind. Just come to your own decision on this event, and hopefully the people that lost their lives, they can look down and smile at us as we try to work out what happened on that day and know they're at peace. So on that note, next week, what are we doing? Next week, what are we discussing? Next week, I don't know. What are we discussing next week? Well, next week, we are doing the Travis Walton abduction case. What's that? If you check in next week, you will find out. So on that note, chibble to all my friends, chibble. Until next time, this is Trev the Rev, and wait for it. I almost forgot. If you enjoyed this show, please hit that thumbs up button. And if you haven't done so already and you'd like to do so again, please subscribe to my channel. Please subscribe to my channel. And if you haven't done so already, to subscribe and ring that bell and tell your friends about this show, because my show would be yes. And on that note, chip lost my sense really. This is Trev the Rev and Ain't No Bicker signing off till next time. Bye bye.